Welcome to the Homeschool Together podcast. Where one working mom and a stay-at-home dad help you navigate the nuts and bolts of the growing and dynamic world of homeschooling.
With a focus on early learners, like me.
All the ins and outs of building and maintaining your homeschool life.
Homeschool.
Find out tips and tricks to make things like this easier.
I'm reading.
And ultimately, enjoy educating your kids. And what's that last thing?
Have fun together. Did I do good, Daddy?
Yeah, you did, sweetie. Good job. Hello and welcome back to Homeschool Together. Thank you for joining us. It's the fall around here, and I'm going to be talking specifically about harvesting. Ariel, do you know what we're going to be harvesting? Reviews. And the best way you can do that is to go down below and click on the review link. She didn't know that one was coming. And leave us a review on iTunes. That'd be really helpful. Help other people when they see our podcast and they were wondering, are these guys legit? You guys are that social proof. So if you could take just a moment or two and help us out, and that would be great.
So today we really want to talk about AI, and we're going to get all into that. But I just wanted to put a call out there. If you're on our Facebook group, we have a really terrific Facebook group that has some really great participation. We really appreciate everyone on there. If you could let us know the new things you're doing, this is a space, as well as many other homeschooling topics, new curriculums, new things. Part of the way we find out about stuff is by having, people highlight how they're using it. So if you're using a new curriculum that you love, or you're using a new piece of technology or a new manipulative or something, please share it on the Facebook group. And, it's not always just for questions. Sometimes I love when people just say, hey, I found this cool thing and it's really great. And I just wanted to share it with everyone. So please do that. We really appreciate the kind of crowdsourced nature to keep us all on the cutting edge with what's cool.
So today we're going to be diving a little bit into the AI and talking about how to use that in your homeschool. We had an episode earlier, and I went ahead and linked that down in the show notes below. So if you're wanting to catch up on a little bit of that, and we have an interview with another individual that I'm going to put in there as well, where we talked about AI, just kind of like the idea of AI, some ideas on how to use it. Today we're going to be kind of going into a specific application of AI, and that's the audio. But today, if you have any questions and you want to listen to our back episodes on that, I'll go ahead and link those down below. Now, with respect to AI, this is not artificial intelligence like, the old Spielberg movie or iRobot.
With the weird faces.
With the weird faces and stuff. This is a generative AI. This is a very, very, very smart computer, basically program that you can run, and it can basically predict what it thinks you want to know about some topic. And it has been trained on a large amount of data. So it has a large amount of information that it can predictively try to guess what you mean by when you put in like a prompt or put in a question. These are very cool tools you can use. They are kind of bleeding edge 0.1 beta versions of the tools. We have not yet seen them, I think, really catch on like wildfire within corporate America yet. I mean, we're starting to see that, but from the standpoint of the really cool tools that you can use, and we're going to talk a little bit about what they are and how we're using them today. But I'm just going to name three of the most popular tools, and I'll go ahead and put links down below. The biggest one that we probably all have heard about is ChatGPT, and that's from the OpenAI organization. I think is now just going from non-for-profit back to profit. I think they're doing something there. Then there's the next one, which is, I think, the company that you may know a lot about is Google. Google has its own AI named Gemini, and that is available as well. And then there's a third one from a company called Anthropic, and they've named their AI Claude. And so those are the three big players. Now, there's a lot of other ones, especially Meta, that's Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. They have their own, but those are open source tools, and they're kind of hard to use from the standpoint of novice users like ourselves. The three, Claude, Gemini, and ChatGPT, have very nice, easy interfaces that you can work with to basically put in a prompt, ask a question, ask the AI to do something, and it will go ahead and do that for you. So today we want to talk a little bit about audio.
Yeah, so we we've been using and I'm sure many of you have been using the text features for quite some time, but the audio features are getting to the point where it's now, I think we're kind of we're at the next step. I don't quite yet have my virtual assistant that I want, especially for this podcast, but
agents are coming.
Yeah, eventually it's going to get there. But the things that we're testing out now have been really fun because I feel like it's more usable now that we've got the speech part of it. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to talk a little bit about the uses. The other day, I was driving in a car with our daughter, and she was asking me a question about what happens when a car is totaled in an accident, as far as like, where does the car go? What happens to the pieces of the car? How is it recycled? And we're driving in the car, and I'm sitting in the passenger seat, and you are talking, and I'm like, I don't know how to. So I just grabbed ChatGPT, and I clicked the little.
So ChatGPT is available on mobile app.
On an app. Yep. So I just had it on my iPhone, and I clicked the little microphone, and I said, tell me what happens to all the pieces of a car after it's been totaled in an accident. And ChatGPT was able to come up with exactly what happened. And because my car was plugged into the car,
we have the Apple Play feature in the car.
Exactly. I was able to just go ahead and play it for my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
So it was essentially like I was able to just verbally ask without having to type. And then I was able to play it back. And it used to be very clunky, but I wanted you guys to hear what this sounds like now because I think it's a whole new ball game now in the way that this sounds.
So she's gonna play the audio here from her phone, very high tech here, right into the microphone.
When a car is totaled, its fate depends on its condition, the extent of the damage, and its value as a salvageable asset. Here's what typically happens to the car itself. 1. Salvage auction. Totaled cars are often sold at salvage auctions. Insurance companies or the car owner may sell the vehicle to buyers like salvage yards, recyclers.
So that was a good example of, obviously it went ahead and did, how many points did it have for you? Like
yeah,
it had
like 6. So the whole thing took about a minute or so.
Yeah. And
I was able to completely answer my daughter's question. Obviously, I think we need to caveat all of this with AI stuff is not always perfect. But when it comes to very general questions, like the questions our kids have, I think it can do a pretty good job. One of the ones that I really liked is, explain superconductors like I'm 5 years old.
Well, and that's cool. That's part of the prompt engineering when you're putting in prompts.
Right. You want to give it a qualifier.
Yeah, putting in qualifiers on, the age level that it's targeting, the readability of the text, whatever it might be, can make it easier for the children. And I think like the 5 years old thing is kind of funny, or like read it to me for a first grade level or a fifth grade level or whatever that might be.
Exactly.
And you can also specify the length at which you want. So give me this information in 7 sentences, or give it to me in 200 words.
Exactly. And I think for those kids who have tons of questions, this is great. And like, you may have a 5-year-old who asks you, what is a superconductor? Because they heard the word.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't even know. But with ChatGPT.
Superconductors are special materials that can make electricity move really fast without losing any energy. Imagine you're sliding down a super smooth slide. You never slow down, and you don't need to push. Superconductors are like that for electricity.
Yep.
Right.
Facts. True.
Facts, except, just put in the right context.
And I love the fact that it's starting to add like the metaphors that the child could understand. There's a level of sophistication there now with the latest models that I think is starting to become breathtaking, where they're actually, if I'm right, they're kind of sitting on top of them, of the LLM, the large language model, and then they're starting to ask recursive questions of itself. That's actually asking itself and trying to put together like a flow of reasoning to try to get you the answer. And it has these checks now, and it's asking itself, and it's doing all this in real time, like 20 or 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And then it kicks out the text to you, and underneath the hood is really sophisticated. So it was ChatGPT 4. And then we had ChatGPT 4.0, and now we have 4.01. And that's so kind of a preview level now. Yeah, like
all of this was just with the free version of ChatGPT.
The free version of ChatGPT.
And so one of the things I think has changed about this, and just wanting you to hear what the audio sounds like, is that it used to be I had to type in and then it would give an answer. And I would have to then read that to my child, right? But now that I can talk to it and it can talk back to me.
And the way you turn on the audio feature is there's like a block of text, and then you hold down the text and it kind of highlights that text, and it gives you an option to, like an ellipses or something that you hit, and then you say play this audio or something.
Right. It's called Read Aloud. And it'll read to you. So one of the things now is our daughter can actually, because she's, she could write something, but she doesn't exactly know where all the letters are on a keyboard to type, or even on a phone or a tablet. Now she can just hit the microphone and she can ask ChatGPT a question. Yeah. I mean, obviously, we want to be around to make sure that we were monitoring this situation, but we've been doing these travel guides for our new Trekking the Globe series that we're doing. We're studying all these countries, and she's able to actually just ask ChatGPT, if I were going to plan a 7-day trip to Spain, where would I go? And it's able to answer her. So the fact that she can talk to it and it can talk back is really a whole new ball game. And I think it's really changed things. And for me to be able to give her a quick answer, it's really done something quite unique. The other thing we were talking about with this is, imagine you're at the zoo and everyone's trying to get up to see the animals, and there's like that one small plaque that gives you the information about that type of gorilla or whatever. Instead, I can just quietly type or ask ChatGPT to tell me all about this kind of gorilla. And if I have one earbud and my child has an earbud, then we can both hear the information that it reads back to us without having to read. The child can listen while observing the animals in the zoo or wherever you're at. You could be at a museum. You could be out and about. We were talking about, now this could be your own personal tour guide. So when you're traveling, if you see an old building or you see a statue, hey, give me the history of this thing. And then if you have, some headphones or you're not in a crowded place and you can listen out loud, you can actually hear all the history as if you had a tour guide right in your pocket.
Well, we did this when you and I went to Europe for a long extended vacation, our baby moon, before we had kids.
Yeah.
And
so long ago.
I know. So long ago, a whole nother generation ago. But we had the Rick Steves tour guides, audio files. And so we would go into a building or we'd go to a location, and we put our earbuds in and we'd hit play together on like our iPods.
It was long ago.
Yeah. And we'd hit play. And so the audio would be playing together. And, Rick would be saying, okay, now look to the north towards the bridge. Just to your right, you see this building. And this is, blah, blah, blah about this, period in time. And then it's like, turn a little bit to your right. You'll see a yellow building. That building is this, and blah, blah, blah. Like, we had this kind of virtual tour guide. And you can imagine this being something similar to that. We also saw this when we were in Ireland, when we were walking around, I think, a cathedral. And
we were at St. Patrick's
in Dublin, and we had the headphones on. And all the girls, both girls got them, you got them, I got them, and we were able to play different audio tracks. Both girls were just enamored with the fact, because they're both audio lovers, audiobooks and their Yodos and all that stuff. Being told the story of what they were looking at was really amazing to them, and it really occupied them. And it's kind of funny, like we have always known about this, but now all of a sudden you had this idea, like in the last few weeks, to think, what if we had our own little tour guides from ChatGPT that would just go ahead and pump out that information, put in your earbud, just like as you explained, and be able to provide you that information or that knowledge as you're walking through. It seems just an amazing feature.
Yeah, we're really excited about. We're planning to go to Europe again next year as a family, and we were just typing in some things about kind of asking it to be a tour guide for us in different places. Well, what if I was standing here? Can you tell me the most famous things here? Take me on a walking tour, and it was able to put together those items and take you around, which I think is phenomenal.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And how many times are you someplace and you're just surrounded by history, but I don't know what any of it is. There's not a plaque somewhere, and then we try to stop and read it, and our kids don't want to stop and read it. Yeah. And the story you're telling about being at St. Patrick's Cathedral, our youngest was only 4 when we did that. She wasn't even 5 yet. And well, actually, No, let me go back.
She was almost 3.
She was 3, almost 4.
Yeah.
And it occupied her at 3. She
Yeah.
was very excited about this. So
We had to work around the fact that she would not take the headphones off and yell, "Mommy, there's somebody buried here."
Yeah.
Everybody would get that. But, it was amazing. It was amazing.
It was
to watch
amazing.
That. Yeah.
And so we're talking about this and we're like, hey, if I've got my phone, I can share one earbud with the oldest and you can share, a headset with the youngest. And we can walk around the city wherever we're at and we can learn a whole lot. So that is a very cool usage. If you're out somewhere and you want an audio explanation, now we can do that with ChatGPT, which I think is super duper cool. You can do the same thing with Gemini, which is the Google product, just so you know, it's very similar.
And you had trouble getting to it. Where was it located? They didn't have a Gemini app specifically.
No, it's in the Google app, or I just typed it into Chrome and it took me to Gemini. And Gemini is neat because you can also use a picture. So I believe you could take a picture and say,
"What is this?
What is that? Tell me all about this." So that's another great feature.
If you're thinking about what they're doing with this, it's called multimodal, and what they're doing is they're trying to abstract all the various senses that we have as humans, because as they put this into bipedal robots in the next 5 years, and you have your ChatGPT bot walking through your house and doing your dishes for you and folding your clothes, and it'll be amazing. They need to be able to see what they're looking at and know what they're doing. They need to be able to speak. They need to be able to hear. They need to be able to touch. All those major senses, and maybe eventually be able to smell as well. For fires and carbon monoxide, you can almost imagine they're kind of like a walking safety net for you in your house. They're putting in all these features through the app, like as you said, take a picture and be able to just say, "What am I looking at?" There's a great video. Marquise Brownlee had something where he was reviewing, I think it was a Meta glasses through Ray-Ban, I think it was, and he was wearing the glasses, and he like, you just touch on the side and says, "What am I looking at?"
Yeah.
And the glasses would essentially take a picture of what he was looking at and then go to the cloud, calculate it, come back within a second and say, "We are looking at a video camera in a room with glass windows behind." So they're able to start to put in these features to analyze what it's seeing around the world. And so they're putting this into the app, and these are great. These features we can then benefit from by using them in this nature.
Yeah, I love the picture one. I took a picture of our audio setup here and I was like, "What is this?" It's like, "This looks like a home studio setup. There are audio cables and there's this and there's that." It tells me all about it.
Oh my gosh, take a picture of me.
Take
a picture of me.
What is this?
What is this?
I can't help with images of people. It won't do that. So those are those restrictions you're talking about.
I'm not a person, yes.
Yeah.
Well, and also some of the content that they're putting in protections as well for certain types of content. You can't ask it certain questions. You can't ask it to do things. But you always see these funny videos of people getting around it. I saw one today, but they're trying to put in these protections so that the AI is both respectful, not mean and cruel and everything, but more of like a helpful AI as opposed to something that's evil. Let's just call it Terminator.
Skynet.
Give me your clothes.
We don't want to be Skynet. So those are a couple of cool uses we wanted to talk about. Using pictures to ask questions about, going ahead and talking to it, having it read back to you and your kids, which is awesome.
And you tried this across all the different apps. Did you see any difference?
So
were they all kind of the same user interface?
Claude is still it still doesn't talk back to you, but Claude does allow you to upload files. So that one's really nice because you can actually put a file in and ask it questions about the file. So I like that, but it doesn't read back to you. Gemini and ChatGPT do. I tend to, and it might just be my comfort level, that I'm more comfortable with ChatGPT.
I think they have the best user interface.
I think so too, and I think they've got a really good voice. I think it's better than the Gemini voice.
And I believe, if I'm right, you can change voices, and whether it's a male or female.
Yeah,
voice.
I'll play the Gemini voice here for you. You can see what this sounds like. I asked it to give me a brief explanation of the structure of a cell in 3rd grade language, so this is what it came up with.
Imagine a cell is like a tiny city. The cell wall is like a fence around the city, keeping everything inside safe. The cell membrane is like the city gate.
I think that one's a little bit more robotic sounding. I think the ChatGPT one is more natural, and it really made me feel more like I was listening to a high quality podcast or something. So I liked that one better than Gemini, but Gemini does get the pictures. So, I mean, it mixed bag. It depends what you're looking for, but the ability to have something quick, audio, and at the right level for your students to hear, I think is just priceless.
Well, I mean, you could almost imagine that it's kind of limitless in the sense of what is the application. You could take it on a hike and talking about the geography of the area or the trees and flora and fauna if you have, access to the web. And that is the key point, is you need to have access to the web either through Wi-Fi or through your whatever cell service you have, being able to send that information up and be able to download that. It's not a terrible amount of data, so it's not overtaxing.
No, it's not too bad.
Most of the computation, that's heavy duty computation, is happening on the cloud and in the server, so it's not being done on your phone, and you get that information via a download essentially. So it is very responsive. It's very fast. I think it's pretty good now. As you said about the voice, that's one of the big advances in the latest models for ChatGPT, is the voice and the natural flow of the speaking. The language, some of the playfulness, as we kind of saw with the metaphors, is very unique, and it makes it more human. It makes it more of a kind of that. It's breaking that wall, that uncanny valley is starting to narrow. Yeah,
and I think Gemini's voice is going to improve because Google has another product that has really great voices. So I think it's a good opportunity to segue into talking about Notebook LM.
Yes,
this is the latest thing that we've been playing with. One of the cool things about...
And this is a product within Google.
It's for Google. It's free.
That's free. You can use, with Gemini or ChatGPT, whether you're copying any type of text, right? It's getting a text input.
Well, so what it is you can put any kind of... Just like Claude, you can upload documents to it, or you can paste in text, whatever you want to do. What it's meant to do is you have these different notebooks on whatever subject it is. So... You can use documents, you can paste in text, you can use web links. So you can say, hey, let's say that you and your child are doing research on a specific topic and you find a bunch of websites that are applicable. You could use all of those as your sources of information for your notebook, say. So what it does is it's still a language model, except that it queries only the sources that you've given it. So it's like everything is in its own little sandbox. So I could say, I'm looking at the history of racing cars or something, and I found all of these different websites. I've got Encyclopedia Britannica site, and I've got this, and I've got that, and I pull all these sites together, and I feed it all into there, and then it makes the notebook, and then I can query and ask questions about whatever I want based on just the information that I've given it. It also makes a summary of all my information. It can compare and contrast sources. So if you have two sources of information that disagree with each other, let's say you're talking about current events topics and different ways to solve a problem in the world, right? It can talk with you about how they differ, or two different economic plans, or whatever it is you want to talk about. It'll also provide you like a frequently asked questions based on what you did. It can provide you comprehension questions. So if you have an open source, like let's say you're doing, I think like Winnie the Pooh maybe is open source. If you have something like that, you could link that file, and put it in as a source and then ask it all kinds of comprehension questions about it. You can feed in. One of the things that I did, I was playing around with it, and I asked ChatGPT if it could give me a brief history of Prague, the city of Prague in the Czech Republic. And it did. And I took that and I copied it and I threw it into Notebook LM. And then I said, give me a summary. Oh, change the language, move this down to, a fourth grade level. Okay, now I want to ask some study questions based on it. The other thing that it can do, so this is all this one playground, and then you can take notes too. And
are these simple things? These are just like, please do this, or is it a prompt that you're putting in?
Yeah, so it has a quick little chat box, just like ChatGPT, and you can ask it anything you want. It does automatically come up with FAQs and a summary. But there's also a notebook section where you can write your own notes. So you can ask it questions, you can ask it to summarize, you can do all these things, and then you can take your own notes as you draw conclusions from it.
Is the idea around this almost like a like a web tutor mentor for students who are studying and learning something? Is that kind of the notebook, like you're taking notes?
Yeah, it's more like you're taking notes. It's
Okay.
You've got all these different sources and you're compiling them together. Like, let's say you're writing a paper. So I might do this. I have a paper due next week in my MBA course, and I need to talk all about information systems and some different parts of information enterprise systems. So I need to have like 5 different sources of data. So I will pull those 5 sources. I could put them all in Notebook LM and say, help me to compare and contrast these. What is the position of this author on whether or not, enterprise systems are helpful or whether they, decrease efficiencies and blah, blah, blah. I could ask it whatever complicated questions I want. And the thing is with some of these papers, some of these research papers, especially that I'm working with, like 50 pages.
Yeah, real dry.
They're just, I don't have time to read 50 pages, but I do need to understand some of the information and I do need a reference. And so it can help me narrow in on it, and it can make suggestions for parts of the paper. I can read the abstract and I can read introductions and key sections that I want, but then I can make sure that the rest of the 50 pages doesn't disagree with what I think the paper's trying to say. So there's lots of things that you can do with it, but it's a great way to play in your own kind of safe sandbox. So if you're helping your child to do research on dinosaurs or whatever it is, you can help find some great sources online, feed them all into Notebook LM, and then your child can ask whatever questions it wants about dinosaurs, and you know that all the sources you used are good sources. And he or she can look through all of that, which is really cool. The other thing that it does, because we're talking about audio, is it makes a deep dive podcast, and it's a conversation between 2 people. So
So it will take your information as a feature and make a podcast around it.
Right. I feel like we might be out of a job.
No.
And so
No, I've listened to this. And we are definitely out of a job.
We are definitely out of a job. This is so amazing. And one of the things is I love learning about history and I love learning about nonfiction stuff, but I oftentimes find it boring. It's a little dry for me to read or just listen to somebody just kind of talk. Listening to a chat between a couple of people really helps me relate to the information much better. And that's what this does. So this is the one that I did about a history of Prague. And I just asked it to do this. I grabbed it from ChatGPT, threw it in Notebook LM, asked it to do this deep dive. It made a 6-minute podcast. I'm going to play you a little bit of it. And I think at this point, these voices, the way they sound, it was a little scary. So let me play this for y'all.
These are not real people.
Okay, so have you ever wandered around a city and just, I don't know, felt like there's this energy, like every cobblestone, every building has a story to tell?
Oh, absolutely. There are some places where, the weight of history is almost tangible.
Right, totally. And this time on the deep dive, we're taking you to one of those places. We're talking about Prague, the city of 100 spires. And let me tell you, this city has seen it all. Emperors, alchemists, revolutions, you name it, Prague's got a story about it.
It's true. And what I find so captivating about Prague is it's not just like a collection of pretty buildings, It's like someone took the entire history of Europe, condensed it, and plopped it right in the middle of the continent.
Exactly. Prague's location is key.
That I'm still shocked. I'm still blown. We've listened to the whole thing, and it was mind-boggling.
It's like a light sales pitch.
And they even had a name for their podcast, which is the Deep Dive.
Right. So I think they're all called the Deep Dive.
Oh, okay.
So, but yeah, as you go through, it's like a light sales pitch. You can kind of feel a little bit. They're like, yeah, what's really cool is, they're very. Yeah. There's a.
You can tell there's a little inauthenticity there. Like you would almost feel a little odd, but the fact that it's all. It's all fake.
I mean,
it
feels
real.
like it's like a slight ad for Prague, right? Yeah,
paid for by the Department of Tourism.
Right. It feels a little bit like it's an off the cuff ad read, but completely AI voices.
And I wonder why
pretty amazing.
It's kind of funny because I think a lot of people. It almost feels like this tool is meant for helping students learn. Being in that conversation. I always remember being in kind of a study group, if you could remember those, people are talking about the ideas, talking about, whatever topics we had to cover or what we think is going to be on the test. And there was always that kind of conversational nature where we were talking about this type of thing and somebody was teaching the four of us this thing, or we're going over this type of problem, we go up to the whiteboard and work out this type of math problem. You can almost imagine a bunch of people in like a biology class talking about, okay, we need to talk about this, type of biological system and its effects on this. And you could put it into your notes in there, and all of a sudden you have a podcast that's talking to you about those things that you could walk around and listen to, and you get that information. I know I'm an auditory learner. I could listen to podcasts about, knowledge, and it's in my brain. But for reading it and taking notes and having to write things, it would take me 3 or 4 iterations on that. But I could listen to something once and be able to grok everything.
Right. And the beginning of this was kind of
amazing.
a little bit, I just really wanted you to hear how the voices sound.
Yeah,
it was a little bit slow, but as they build into it, they start having this back and forth where he kind of says, so how did this city start? And she's like, yeah, well, in this century, this happened. And he goes, wow, what was that? And and so they have this kind of back and forth. What I like about this kind of conversational thing is that it's not so information dense packed. If you have a single person and they have a script and they're reading it, there's so much information in it. I find anyway that it's hard for my brain to process it. As they keep talking, I'm like kind of behind. I'm not getting it all. But because it's a conversation,
there's
in this
moments where you don't have to listen to everything they say, and allows you to process the information that did come through. I see.
So she's like, yeah, because, in the 4th century, this happened and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, wow, that must have been really difficult. I wonder what happened then, kind of thing. And while he's saying the garbage words, my brain's like processing 4th century, this happened. Okay. And then she's giving another thing. Right. And so it gives you time, to catch up.
Time to breathe, essentially giving your brain to breathing time.
Right. And that's, I think, part of my issue too with nonfiction writing, if it's not done really well, is that it's just so much information.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't, and then my brain gets numb, and then I get tired. So I think this is really neat. And especially because we can put it in whatever age appropriate language we need. But, I encourage you guys to play with it. These are all free.
I'll put links down in the show notes. So if you're wondering where these things are, they're all down below, and there'll be direct links to those. So I think the best thing about AI that I've always told people about it is don't be afraid of it. Use it. Yeah. It's not scary. It's not crazy. I've given a couple lectures about it with respect to writing, and a lot of people are really fearful of it. They have some moral objections to it and everything. And I'm always like, yes, I understand those things, but just try it and see how it can help you. Yeah. See where you can use it. There's a lot of ways I think it can't be used, and as of right now, everything with AI is always caveated with as of now. But I think using it is the best way to experience it. I think putting it on your phone is really, really helpful because, we always have our phones with us, and being able to just kind of always use it. Whenever you go to the web to look up something, go to ChatGPT first, type it in there, see what comes up, just that experience of doing that. I really will suggest to you just to actually use these tools spend 30 or 40 minutes on it and just see what you can make with it. It's amazing. All of a sudden your brain gets going, wow, I can use it here. I can use it here.
Well, we need to train our kids about using it, because it's going to be something as they transition into
not going away.
High school and college. It's going to be used, in my MBA program right now. I use ChatGPT a lot. I've been talking with some friends and things about how this is going, and it's really revolutionized things for me because I get an assignment and I do my research and I write my whole paper. And then I'm using ChatGPT almost as a virtual tutor. So I'm not having it write for me because that's against the ethics of it. It's I'm writing it, and then I'm saying, here, ChatGPT, these were my assignment guidelines. This is what I wrote. Did I meet all the assignment criteria with this? Which is exactly, if I walked into a student support center at my university, I could walk in there with my assignment and with what I wrote and say, would you read this? Did I cover all the points? And it would say, oh no, actually, you missed point 3A right there. And that's what ChatGPT says. It's like, oh, yep, you check. Oh, this one you should probably go back. And then I'll rewrite again, and of course, I'm checking it with Grammarly for grammar errors and spelling and stuff like that to make sure that it's good. But I can ask it again. Okay, did I catch everything now? Does this make sense? And those are the same questions that you could ask a tutor, and a tutor could help you with. So I think we need to train our kids, they need to get experience using it because it's a really helpful tool. They should use it when they get into school. They will have to use it because at some point, you've always said this, at some point, professional work is going to be about managing your AIs. And especially as our kids grow up and they enter the workforce, it's going to be that much more true.
Productivity in general will be calculated not by per capita as we've done, forever.
Yeah.
But it's going to be how many AIs are you managing? How many sub AIs, agents? We're going to start hearing the term in the next year or two, the idea of agents. These are people, essentially an AI that lives with you, that is helping you all the time, almost like a personal assistant, that is going to be PhD level of intelligence, working with you all the time to accomplish anything you need to accomplish.
It's really mind-blowing. I think it's going to be for our kids' generation, it's going to be their calculator, right? That they're going to have, and they're going to use it. So they need to be comfortable using it, and they need to know how they can use it without it doing the work for them, because they're absolutely going to need it going forward. And so I think we'd put them at a disadvantage if we don't, work with them, explore what it can do, what it can't do, always, verify what it comes up with, and don't just trust it outright. But I think for a lot of, very basic stuff, especially that we'd be teaching our kids in the elementary grades for us, younger learners about basic science or history topics or things, it's probably going to be pretty well established information, and I tend to find it's good. If you do ask it about like movies or other pop culture things, it's not great. No. It does not do a great job. You'd be like, hey, give me 4 movies that were made in the last 10 years that reference these type of topics, and it'll give you something from 1985. It's not great on that. So
pop culture references.
Pop culture stuff, not awesome.
Can't use ChatGPT at the local bar or trivia night. No.
One thing you can do too is if there's a story, we were studying Scandinavia, and we wanted to read The Little Mermaid by Hans Christian Andersen, and the book that I got from the library of all the Hans Christian Andersen stories did not have The Little Mermaid, and my girls were very upset about it. Now it's in the public domain, so I went ahead on and found a copy of it online, and it was so long that I did not have time to read the full original version of it to my kids. And of course, the book I got from the library was not the original versions either. It was a retelling that was more appropriate for their kids and their reading length and everything. So anyway, I took this and I threw it in ChatGPT and I said, hey, please be true to the original, but rewrite this for, a second grader. And it was able to do it for me and gave me a story that I could read to the girls. And it kept all of the same major plot movements and things from the story, the same moralities and all of that, but in something they could digest. So there's a lot of great ways to use these tools. We would love for you to share with us, what you do with AI tools and in your homeschool and in your life. We're always looking to learn more. Thanks so much for joining us today and making us a part of your homeschool journey. Please engage with us on social media. Join our Homeschool Together podcast group on Facebook and find us at Homeschool Together Podcast on Instagram. We'd love to hear your feedback, questions, and recommendations. Until next time,
Happy homeschooling!